Hello, good afternoon. My name is Haresh Malkani. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for CESMI. First of all, thank you for joining us today. We have an exciting topic for you. We're going to be talking about a new class of projects that CESMI has launched and is going to continue to launch. And these classes of projects are called SM Innovation Projects, or Smart Manufacturing Innovation Projects. That's the topic of the day today. You may have all seen the press release that went out earlier this week, announcing that we have a project call going out and that we'll be inviting proposals for this class of projects. I'm going to open this up a little bit and then have various speakers through the hour that will be talking about specific topics during the call. We are going to take questions at the end, excuse me, at the end of the presentation. But if you have something burning that you want to ask, there is a Q&A button on your Zoom window. Feel free to use that. So with that, we will first have our CEO, John Dyke, spend a few minutes just talking about our vision as an institute and provide a bit of an overview of what we do and how we do it, for those of you who may not be familiar. We will then talk about this particular project framework, so the SM Innovation Project, what it means, what the flavor is, how it's structured. Then we'll move on to talking about the SM Innovation Platform at a high level, just to give you an overview of what it is and how it connects back into the types of projects that we are talking about today. We will then make a connection back into the Institute's roadmap and the different types of projects that we launch through the Institute and how this particular type of project connects back into the roadmap. And then finally, we'll spend some time talking about the details of this particular RFP, the request for proposals for this round of innovation projects. So that's the agenda. And with that, I will let John Dyke take it from here.
Outstanding, Haresh. Thank you for that introduction. Can you advance to the next slide, please? Thank you. So it's a true honor and privilege for me to share with you all today a high-level perspective on how we see CESMI working through our members and through these RFP calls to accomplish a really, really important mission for the Institute, for the Department of Energy, our partner in this initiative, and for the manufacturing ecosystem across this country. This is an audacious set of objectives. We have a really noble goal and series of strategies that we are funded to accomplish by the Department of Energy, and we take that very seriously. This RFP and those that we've executed on and are executing on are the way we are privileged to invest taxpayer funds to do what we're chartered to do. And a little bit of that's outlined here. We're privileged to have a great ecosystem of members here and prospective members, consisting of manufacturers, systems integrators, software application vendors, academia, government labs, and machine builders, those organizations that build sensors and automation systems and robots and machine tools that in many ways provide the foundation for the data that's emitted on the plant floor and that can be used to create value. So we're a private-public partnership. Our goal is to create a more competitive manufacturing environment here in the US by funding the innovation and the research necessary to dramatically reduce the cost and the complexity of how information is used from manufacturing operations, is used to create a more effective manufacturing environment, whether that's through cost improvements, generate cash, etc., drive more revenue, ultimately with the goal of driving energy productivity, manufacturing productivity, and competitiveness. Next slide, please. If we can encapsulate our vision here in one statement, it's with the purpose of accelerating the democratization of smart manufacturing. This is fundamentally about, as I mentioned before, reducing cost and complexity of what it takes to free up the information that's all over the manufacturing operations environment and facilitate better decision support for people and for systems and for the organizations that can take that information and do something more effective with it. So we do that in these three specific ways: the democratization of technology, advocating for specific standards, in some cases creating what we call a de facto standard for some really important technology areas, which we'll talk about through our smart manufacturing innovation platform, through this notion of smart manufacturing profiles. The democratization of knowledge, there's a hugely strategic need for, important need for smart manufacturing practitioners across this ecosystem to understand basic and advanced concepts around smart manufacturing from an implementation standpoint, from a product development standpoint, and from the practitioner standpoint. How do we leverage these capabilities? Whether I'm a small, medium manufacturer that has 50 employees and very little domain expertise in this area, or whether I'm a Fortune 100 manufacturer with operations all over the world, it's vital for us to create a baseline of knowledge that's much, much higher than where we are today. And last but not least, the democratization of innovation itself. Kind of focus on what today are largely proprietary behaviors and organizations that because of the way this ecosystem works, are forced to differentiate themselves and their organizations in ways that are largely not differentiated. And where we can use technology to change some of those behaviors and create a culture of innovation and collaboration that's much more prone to driving this industry forward. Next slide, please. We do what we do, obviously, for this industry, for this country, through the execution of a variety of different project types. We've called out 5 here: innovation projects, application projects, education and workforce development projects, platform and capability projects, and last but not least, enabling R&D projects. All of these conform to our vision, are jointly developed with the Department of Energy to demonstrate improvement in energy efficiency, number 1. Number 2, reduce the cost of deploying smart manufacturing in existing processes by 50%. Number 3, demonstrate significant industry adoption of smart manufacturing technology. And last but not least, establish a portfolio for technology, R&D, and workforce development. The vision, that's the vision that we're executing to. The strategy is through, as I just pointed out, the democratization of smart manufacturing, and everything we do here at the Institute is a function of our roadmap. And that roadmap is one that is collectively developed by our members, together with and led by our standing committees in each of these areas, as you see here in the top right-hand corner. Our focus today, and what we're really, really excited about, is this prospect of engaging with our membership in this new class of innovation projects, new as of 2020, in a way that allows us to bring these capabilities, really the top 3 of those 4 key mandates from the Department of Energy, allows us to bring them to the marketplace in small, agile, quick to value projects called innovation projects. And that's essentially what we're here to share with you today. We want those of you that are familiar with CESMI and the way we've done RFP calls in the past, but also many of you who have never heard of an RFP from an institute like CESMI, that have no understanding of kind of what this might look like, don't understand some of the basic ideas of cost share. We're here to take you from where you are to enough of an understanding of what we're looking for to be able to implement or respond to this RFP with a proposal with as little pain as possible, if I can put it that way. So anyway, we're excited to be with you today. We thank you for your time and looking forward to engaging with you through a series of innovation and research projects that we think have the prospect of transforming the industry here in the US. With that, Haresh, I'll hand the floor back to you.
Thank you, John. So I don't know if you detected a lot of excitement in John's voice, but that's what this is about. So I'll spend a few minutes with you to give you a feel for what these innovation projects are. And for those of you who are familiar with some of the other types of projects we are running here, we'll get some idea of why this is a different flavor. And for those of you who are not, then for you, it's brand new information. So at a fundamental level, what this class of projects is doing is that it's a fairly time-bound type of a project, no more than 6 months. And the idea is to demonstrate value for a manufacturer by executing on this project through a diverse team. So on the right-hand side, you can see the team could be made up of a systems integrator, manufacturer, somebody who develops software applications for manufacturing, somebody from the academia who has perhaps a predictive model of some sort that is applicable for that use case, or even a machine builder who provides the asset that we're talking about. So the project team is pretty diverse, and we want to keep it that way. And so the manufacturer on that team will define a target use case, and the use case may be based on a particular asset or a process that the manufacturer has. So you may ask a question, what keeps you up at night? What is the problem that you want to solve? And then this integrated team will come together and they will create a solution for that use case. But in doing so, they will do two important things. One is it'll create what we are calling the SM profile. And in a few minutes, I'll hand the baton over to Jonathan, who will explain what that is. But think of this as a structured information model that allows you to seamlessly access information and utilize that information, right? So the team will actually create a profile for that particular asset that is being talked about here in the use case. And then the team will also then either develop or use an existing application that sits on top of it in order to solve that problem. So as they're creating the use case solution, they might be using a software application or a predictive model that becomes part of that solution. And once that is done, the idea is then to make that set of profiles or predictive models available in our marketplace so that others can benefit from it as well. Right? So the whole idea behind CESMI is to create solutions and components that are reusable. So that's why this is an important piece. What we've done is we've provided a fairly wide range of funding here, as little as 50K total to as much as 200K total. And there's a 50-50 cost share match here. So if you come up with 100K investment from your team, we will match it by another 100K from CESMI, from the federal funds. So that's the idea behind it. Now you may ask, well, so what are the classes of problems that we are interested in at CESMI? Now for this particular types of projects, we are looking at three predetermined areas of value, right? If you look at the first one, that's all around the energy consumption, energy productivity. So any innovative solution that demonstrates that this will actually improve either energy consumption or energy productivity, then that's all valid, right? A valid proposal. And it has to be doing that through the use of smart manufacturing technologies. So the use of our smart manufacturing platform, creating the smart manufacturing profiles, and using applications that become part of that use case solution, right? So those are the things we are talking about. The second class is precision, productivity, and performance. So whether it's improving your efficiency, your productivity, your quality, reducing waste, improving the performance of your asset, all of those fall into that second bucket. Again, the flavor is the same, that you're utilizing smart manufacturing technologies, particularly the ones that we are dealing with at CESMI, and then creating a solution out of it. and then in return, creating the components that are reusable. The third class is around asset monitoring, asset management, and predictive maintenance. So you've heard a lot of this out there in the marketplace today, that connecting our assets in a fashion where we are able to run some predictive models that tell you when a particular piece of equipment is going to be needing maintenance, or when is it sort of starting to behave in a fashion that's not normal, right? Those are the types of applications that sit out here on the right. And so what we've done is we purposely created 3 major buckets under which these proposals will be accepted, right? So if you have a use case that falls into any of these, that would be a great proposal for us to consider. So what is the value here for the project team? So if you're a project team thinking of submitting a proposal, then first of all, you will be able to solve a particular challenge that you identify with the manufacturing partner, right? And do so using SM technology, smart manufacturing technology. During that project, you'll get free access to our SM innovation platform and the solutions, and the ability to run some of these applications in our Azure subscription. And the third item here is a cost match or a funding match up to 100K for your project. So that's what you get from this particular type of a project, right? For your team. That's the benefit for the team. What we get at CESMI out of this is, in return, we'll get components that will become part of a growing library of these profiles and applications that will become part of our marketplace, right? And these are all going to be reusable SM capabilities that we can say that, hey, CESMI has a library of these reusable capabilities that you can apply to solve manufacturing problems. It also helps us with our manufacturers to help them reduce the cost and complexity of implementing these solutions, because these are reusable solutions. Somebody's done the hard work, created the profiles, created the applications that can now be used by other members, right? They're taking the complexity away. We are providing a platform that takes away the complexity in terms of how data is captured and managed or structured, right? And then last but not least is the demonstration of our platform across multiple use cases through multiple industries, right? We want to be reaching out to the broad masses. So that's why we are doing this. So again, there's a give and take here. There are a lot of benefits for the project team. There are a lot of benefits for CESMI and its members, right? So having said that, you may have noticed that I used some words in there that related to the SM innovation platform and profiles and all that stuff. And it's a good thing that we have Jonathan with us. I'll hand it over to Jonathan to maybe spend a few minutes telling us about what the platform is and profile in the marketplace and how they connect back into the SM innovation project framework.
Thanks. Yeah, so if you're new to CESMI, the SM platform is probably a new concept, and maybe you're mentally mapping it to other products that you've seen in the marketplace. There might be some similarity there, but if we want to go to the next slide, what I want to call out first is that CESMI's primary goal here is to see new and common approaches to the acquisition of manufacturing data. We are not a commercial organization. We don't have a product to sell. What we're trying to do together is to rally around some standards, some of which need to evolve, and some common concepts that we can share in common regardless of who provides the platform. In order to do that, we aren't going to stop at just documenting these ideas. We are putting together an implementation of those ideas, and we're drawing from CESMI members who have existing technology that are aligned with this vision, that we need to break proprietary silos. We need to be able to work together. We need to do so in a secure fashion, so the right data gets to the right people, but we need to do it in an open fashion so that data is not trapped in these little silos. So that's what the platform is it's an exploration of these ideas, it's an implementation of these ideas. And some CESMI investment has gone into developing components, and other has gone into accelerating the efforts of our members who are aligned with this vision. So as you prepare a response to this RFP, a main consideration is that we want you to use this platform, this specific implementation of these ideas, because it's kind of the tip of the spear. And the flip side of that is you're not going to be locked in. In fact, our main goal is the portability of your solution, is making sure that the solution you deploy to solve a particular manufacturing problem for a particular manufacturer in this project has a shot at being reused anywhere else that problem exists. And so the platform and the technologies that we're going to talk about that you'll be required to leverage for your project are in pursuit of that openness, in pursuit of interoperability, and built with security in mind. So at the bottom of this picture, we have the kinds of equipment that, or assets more generally, that we'll expect that you'll be connecting to for the kinds of projects that you're going to propose. It could be unstructured data. It could be data with some structure coming from devices within the system. Whatever the source is within the OT or the operational technology network, we want to find standard ways to get that data out. There are the current capabilities of the platform that are going to largely drive you to historical data sources. And then there are cutting edge capabilities of the platform that'll free you from that constraint and allow you to explore a range of other data sources. Both paths will be supported as part of your project. But our main goal at this level is the connection to a variety of data sources into a standard structure. The SM profile that we'll talk about informs the acquisition of data. So you'll be required to develop the profile to determine what data to acquire. The SM profile also informs the destination structure of that data. So frequently the data that you're going to get from a manufacturing system is not structured in a way that is well suited for information analysis. The kind of core layer of the platform has the job of taking that data and squeezing or molding it into a reliable shape and structure, and taking those structures, those objects, and having them related to each other in a way that reflects one or more topologies of the system that you're drawing data from. The most obvious one would be the physical relationships between equipment or assets. So that's all provided for you in the core platform layer. There's a graphical user interface for assembling those. There's also a API. So when you graduate past the click and drag and you want to accelerate, maybe importing a lot of assets, you'll be able to use the API to do that as well. But this object model and objects in graph relationships with each other, we think are one of these kind of minimum things that we need to have in order to have portability of your applications. And then finally, your app, in the literal sense of the word, an application of this technology should be to solve a problem for a manufacturer. And rather than tying your app directly to the manufacturer's infrastructure, you're going to tie it to these open specification layers that can later be bound to another manufacturer's infrastructure. So these kind of three layers all will hopefully soon be delivered to future customers via the SM Marketplace or Smart Manufacturing Marketplace. These reflect three strategic areas of investment for CESMI. So on the next slide, just a few brief words on what we're doing on each of those. So you likely will hit some constraints in this project. We're developing this together, but those constraints, those stress points help us identify where we need to invest in alleviating those. One that's become obvious is that we need more and more protocol support. As we approach manufacturers that are quote unquote brown fields, they have established equipment that's been there for years, we need to be able to adapt to that equipment in order to acquire data. We have this catch-all we call a GraphQL API, We can adapt to anything with that, but sometimes it's more work than we'd like. So we want your project to explore those boundaries, to help us identify where adapters are missing. We'll work with you to get you through the project with the APIs, and then we'll be able to direct our funding to accelerating your efforts with future adapters. The second area of investment is this object model. And I talked about on the previous slide, the intent of the object model first is to take this relatively unstructured data and mold it into structure. But it also is the API. So the structures that you build in the physical model or whatever topology you choose to model in the system, those will be reflected in the API that you can program against. And it's the same API, it's the GraphQL API that you can use to wire up data acquisition, to automate the data modeling. It's that same API that will allow you to get access to the data and consume it into your application. So think of your application then as the bundle of logic that takes some data, processes it, and returns it as value to the manufacturer, hopefully in the form of the problem you're aiming to solve for them with this project. And our goal is that, maybe not on the first putt, but we should have line of sight to taking that bundle of value that you created and wrapping it up in a way that it can be distributed in the marketplace, that you can monetize it, and that we can automate the deployment of these things anywhere that problem exists. On the next slide, just a few words about profiles, because they probably sound like a magic bullet, and they're not that. They are another collaborative effort. An analogy might be to a driver, not in the sense that we're building a driver that lets my Windows computer control a paper converting machine or a generator. It's an information driver. It's a three or more part structure based on an open standard provided by the OPC Foundation that does those three things that we just talked about. It provides the data acquisition instructions, it provides the shape and structure of the data, and it provides the programmer's interface so that you can consume that data in a standard fashion, regardless of which vendor's platform is providing it. In these projects, you will be using our version of the platform from end to end, but you can be confident in knowing that these are open standards and open specifications that we're all trying to rally around. So you're by no means locked into anything, but we want you to explore and test out these ideas, and then we commit to working with you when you hit constraints. But the core thing that you need to build, the core output of this, besides the problem that you propose to solve for manufacturer, is a profile. That profile doesn't need to be perfect. We would love to take and run with your profiles together with the membership, improve them to get them in the place, to monetize them where they see fit for those who own the intellectual property, but they are a collaborative effort because they need to benefit everyone. We're going to talk in more depth at our next webinar about the profiles, but I just want to say a couple quick things if I have time, and wave if I don't, guys. Profiles are not monolithic. You don't need to solve the entire problem in a profile. In fact, we intend profiles to move through an inheritance approach where we go from a general profile that is broadly reusable, but maybe doesn't have all the information, through inheritance to a more specific profile. So as you're making your profiles, think about the problem you're solving, but also think about how you can abstract the profile to other equipment of similar types. And this is where we can bring in subject matter experts to help do that generalization. You don't have to fully solve it, but do keep that in mind as you're developing this. I think that's it for me, Haresh.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. Appreciate it. And as Jonathan said, there'll be more of a deep dive in our next webinar next week, and you'll get to hear him a little bit more in more detail. So one of the things we wanted to do today is to give you a feel for how all this activity and these types of projects fit into our overall vision, the roadmap, and the types of projects that John referred to in his opening earlier today. So if you look at what we've got in terms of a roadmap, you will see the four, we're calling them pillars, they're actually blocks here, but they're highly integrated. And if you look at what they represent, on the right-hand side are the two blocks that are technology focused. So we refer to these as the enabling technologies. So think about anything that can fit into the world of, say, sensing or control or analytics or process modeling. Those are the building block technologies that we talk about here, and any gap that needs to be filled in those areas are closed by running these enabling R&D projects, right? So they tend to be slightly longer term, but they also attack more fundamental problems that are preventing industries from moving in the direction of adopting smart manufacturing. The second pillar here is all about the platform. This is the SM Innovation Platform. And so this is all about how data and information moves between one portion to another within that ecosystem that utilizes these components for smart manufacturing, right? So we also have projects that are very heavily directed in that arena, and we're calling them platform capability projects, right? So anything that helps build the capability of the platform falls under that category. The next category here is called the application project. And this simply says that you've got existing technologies here, both in terms of the platform as well as the building blocks. But then how do you utilize them to actually solve a manufacturing problem, do a proof of concept without having to develop anything new? So use existing available technology through CESMI. And that's this application project. On the left-hand side here is the focus around education and workforce development. So again, technology by itself is not going to get you where you need to be on smart manufacturing. You need to think about your workforce. You need to think about your talent pipeline. And these projects are all focused on developing the content and doing the training and so on and so forth for our workforce. And then there's this business practices element where we want to enable our manufacturers and our industry members to become capable of utilizing these technologies, scale it up, tell them how the ROI comes in, make sure that they're able to remove the barriers to be able to doing so. And we've kind of folded them back into these types of projects. But again, that's something that we can distinguish at a later date. Today's topic is this one, right? The innovation project. So these are sort of a combination that not only utilize the platform, but it also helps develop some content for the platform in the marketplace, right? And these are also more shorter term. So you want to be able to prove to our manufacturers that, look here, by running these projects, you're going to get something valuable at the end of the 6 months, rather than waiting 2 years to derive value, right? So that's the emphasis that we are doing here. So you can see the difference in the different types of projects that we run through the Institute. If you look at when you're trying to solve a manufacturing use case, right, you have these building block technologies, like I said before, sensing and analytics and process modeling and control, right? But these are all pieces that are actually connected by information flow, right? So we do need a platform that enables these components to interoperate, right, through that information flow. And you may be dealing with just one piece of this. You may just be dealing with just this lower half of this picture, or you may be dealing with the right half of this picture, or you may be dealing with just the left half of this picture. But nevertheless, you need some way of moving information between these pieces. And that's what the platform is about. And what Jonathan talked about as a profile enables that movement to happen in context all the time, right? So you don't have, when you're dealing with this side of the diagram and then come on this side, you don't have to recreate the means through which data is being transferred and utilized and consumed, right? It's all done for you through these profiles. So I just want to bring that up as a seed that I want to plant in your minds. So with that, Why don't we move on to the specifics of this particular request for proposal? And I believe, Miguel, you were going to begin with the content here. So I'll hand the floor over to you.
Thank you, Haresh. Yes, so now the question is, how do we get involved, right? How do we participate in this RFP? And you have seen, the release of the RSP round 2. And I wanted to just take a few minutes here to give you some highlights of what you are going to see on the RFP if you haven't seen it yet. And also, give you some ideas of how to prepare and respond so your projects could be, successful. And let me start with kind of a review of what Haresh mentioned at the beginning. The first thing is, these are $200,000 projects max, okay, with a 50% cost share, obviously. That's critical, okay? We've seen projects sometimes that go a little bit over. Well, a little bit over is over, so be careful, the 200,000 is the limit. We do have a total of $4 million. That includes the cost share for all the projects. So depending on what we receive, we might even use all of it, or depending if we don't get enough, we probably have to do something else. But that's what's on the plans right now for these type of projects. And the most important thing is that these are projects that should be done within 6 months. Therefore, it is critical that you identify clearly some of the deliverables and some of the other things that I will go into in a few minutes to make sure that these projects are completed within the 6 months. So very fast track projects, we like to move them as quickly as possible. Obviously, the deliverables will be beneficial not only to the members, but also to CESMI as a whole. Now, the dates, you have seen these and you will see them on the RFP. Just a quick reminder here, we issued the RFP, 2 days ago. Now, while we're conducting the first webinar, we're going to have another one where we're going to go into more details on how to respond, and I'll give you a little bit more details on what you should keep in mind while you're preparing your proposal. The deadline, we have extended the deadline until the end of December, and that is considering that typically, we're going to have the holidays in there, but we wanted to be mindful that you have plenty of time to respond to the RFP. So you're going to have at least, a month and a half or more to work on this. The selection notification will be done at the end of January, and we're anticipating these projects to be launched sometime in March, early, middle of March. We don't know, depending on how quick we move through the entire process. Another thing that you should keep in mind is try to check with us periodically on our resources page. You will find in there, the templates, everything that you need to respond to this RFP, you will find in there. And one of the things that will be critical for you is the questions and answers. We collect any questions that we receive when we post them. So we're very transparent. You will see them, the answers. And if there's something in there that hasn't been addressed, you're welcome to submit the question as well. It could be anything related to the RFP, okay? Anything that would benefit you in responding and being successful. We also have some related information that you can refer to, like what Jonathan was talking about, some of the platform, the profiles, all of that will be ready for you to refer to in case you forget, as well as this presentation. So if you need to go back and review some of this information, you have it. Okay. Now, in terms of the submittal itself, keep in mind that we're only asking for 2 documents, okay? We're asking you for the proposal itself, which we're gonna give you a template. And we also we ask you to prepare what we call a one-pager, which is a summary of the proposal. So if you do the proposal, creating the one-pager is gonna be very simple, okay? Next slide, Haresh, please. Now, let me walk you through some of the highlights and what we're expecting also to see on a successful proposal. First, we have what we call the problem statement, okay? Why are we doing this? Okay, we have to be clear. And this is one issue that we have found in previous RFPs proposals. That problem statement has to be very clear, has to be articulated in a way that when we read it, we know, oh, this is the problem that you're trying to solve. And then we go into what, okay? What are the objectives, okay? What are you doing to solve that problem? You know, what would be the outcome? You know, specify the deliverables. So this is also critical. You know, we need to know what we're going to get at the end of the project. At the end of the 6 months, we should see A, B, C, and D, whatever those deliverables are. So we're looking for that. Okay, something very simple, but at the same time, you know, concrete, very, very easy to understand. Your technical approach, how are you solving the problem? You know, what methodologies are you going to be using? Okay, how will you validate, you know, the outcome? That's critical as well. I mean, we're not only looking for theories, but we're also looking at the validation of what you did. Okay, how is it going to be demonstrated? I mean, how do we know that you had a successful project? And then one critical impact here is also the what. Okay, you know, are you impacting manufacturing in what sense? Okay, what are the benefits to the team itself? That would be you, maybe a system integrator, maybe it'll be a manufacturer, it could be academia, whatever the team is composed of. What are the benefits to them? And then what are the benefits to CESMI? And Haresh alluded to that in the previous slides. He said, you know, we're also looking for, you know, some contribution to the CESMI as a whole, something that we can use for other members as well, and maybe some other industries. And then specifically, you know, what are the tasks? What are the milestones? And in here, we're looking for short, smart deliverables, you know. And what we mean by smart, I think, is like you all know, I mean, you gotta be very specific, you know, you gotta be able to measure what you're telling us you're gonna be accomplishing in specific tasks. It has to be obtainable, okay, and it has to be related to the problem that you're solving, and obviously within a time bound. Are you gonna do it within the next 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, or at the end of the project? So that's critical for us to make sure that we have tasks and milestones that are smart. And then the budget is very simple. This is not like the other RFPs where we ask you to provide a 335 or a very detailed budget. All we're asking in this case is give us an idea of what your labor costs would be, the materials, equipment, software, travel, if it's included. And just a brief table will do it. So we're making it very simple for you to go through it and make sure you capture that. And then, you know, the team, you know, who's participating and what roles are they playing in the different tasks. We like to know, for example, that if you have a task where somebody's developing the actual profile, who's working on that profile? If somebody's working in making sure that you collect data to put it into that profile, who's working in that collection, the data collection? So that's critical for us also to know. And then if you keep this in mind, you will see that in essence, you are addressing our criteria. You know, the selection criteria. So Aresh, if you don't mind going to the next slide. So if you put together, you know, what I just mentioned, which is really just keeping in mind some of the highlights and the expectations that we like to see on the proposal, then the criteria makes a lot of sense. The only caveat here is that as you prepare your proposals and you try to address the selection criteria, keep in mind that these are only 6-month projects, okay? You're not gonna have a year or 2 years. So obviously in some cases, your business impact is not gonna be as clear as we would like to. For example, percentage improvement in energy, you might have an idea, you might capture that, I don't know, but if you're proposing a project where the impact is going to be very difficult to capture, at least we like to know. We like to know what your rationale is too. You said, yes, the business is going to be impacted and here's what we're expecting. Obviously, you know, 6 months is not enough. So you have to make that determination. So keep that in mind. The technical significance is also very important. You know, we want technologies that we can use across our membership base, you know, not one specific industry, but multiple industries if possible. We're not saying that that's a must have, but we're saying that's one of the things that we looked into. The project execution, you know, we talked about the project objectives and the scopes and the deliverables being very, very well articulated. Well, that's exactly what's part of the criteria. And then one thing that we also look at is what we call the technical evaluation. You know, and here, you know, we're looking to the actual proposal to see what the actual technical contribution would be to the SM platform. Okay, the Smart Manufacturing Innovation Platform is kind of the driver for us in this particular case of projects. And we like to see what is it going to be the contribution, the profile, and what else, how is it going to be applied? Okay, so all of that has to be evaluated under this context of technical evaluation. Then you have, again, the technical approach that I mentioned before. How are you planning? What is your approach to solve that problem that you are addressing on your proposal? And then management capabilities. Here's where we look at the team. Do you have a representation from the industry and from the different expert groups? Maybe in your particular case, you're going to need a system integrator to be able to solve the problem that you're addressing. That's what we're looking for. We need to know how your team is being put together and that you have the right representation and the experts to help you develop the solution. And then at the end, what we do is we do what we call the portfolio selection. Here's where, we take into consideration everything that we receive. Resh talked about the technical roadmap. So we look into the technical roadmap and we see your solution and the proposal that you have and how it fits into that. We look at the whole strategy of the Institute and we'll ask ourselves questions like, does it make sense to do this project? Is this project going to enhance our institute and bring more capabilities and more functionality to our members? So all of that is part of the portfolio selection. And then we look at everything else that we're doing. Resh mentioned all these other projects that we have going on. Well, yes, you might be proposing something that is already being addressed. So we need to take a look at that. If it's something unique, obviously we're gonna look into it and decide whether it makes sense for the portfolio as a whole. And then the last piece here is the cross-industry applicability. Very important for us. Obviously, we are trying to touch every possible segment, every possible industry. The more reach you have into other industries with your solution, the stronger proposal you are going to have. So that's kind of what we try to do in the selection. And I wanted to give you just an idea because I know next week we're gonna get into the more details of what a good proposal is and what we're looking for, and we'll give you an example and everything else. But at least today, you'll have a very good idea what we're gonna be after. Finally, I like to go over the template that we have provided for you if you're interested in responding to this RFP. And I wanted to highlight just a few things. First of all, this is not just a template, it's also an example. And the reason why that we wanted to make it an example as well is for you to have a better idea of how to answer the RFP. So let's go into it, Haresh, if you don't mind. Take a look at maybe a couple of sections there really quick, just to give the audience a quick overview.
Can you see my screen?
I only see the first page. I think you're gonna have to share your screen again. This is not it's not advancing to the second page. There you go. Okay, I see it. So if you see here, everything that you have in green or we have in green is an example. Okay, and obviously your proposal is going to be a little bit different, but at least you'll have an idea what a good executive summary is. What a good problem statement is. You're going to have also a good idea what SMART deliverable is, and the project objectives. So use this in green as an example for you in a reference. The benefits, very clear what the benefits are. When you get into the tasks, you'll see also, the budget period, for example, has a description, okay? And it also talks about the different tasks, and every task has, the description and the month, and a very good example for each of them. So I think this is going to make it easier for anybody who wants to respond to the RFP. Obviously, we're still going to entertain questions in case something doesn't make sense to you, but we have made it a lot easier for anybody interested in responding just by providing the examples. So all you have to do is follow these, take a look at the examples, delete what's in green, and create your own proposal. And then with that, we'll be able to help you if you need any questions or you need any help, okay? So with that in mind, let me turn it over to, I believe it's Howard. He's gonna talk a little bit about cost share, because it's some of you is probably a new concept. So Howard.
Thanks, Miguel. My name is Howard Goldberg. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of CESMI. So I'm here to talk to you about cost share today. I'm sure cost share is a term that may not be familiar to most of you. If it's not, don't feel bad. Before I joined CESMI, I'd never heard of cost share, and I spent most of my career in industry managing the P&Ls of public and privately held manufacturing companies. So cost share is kind of a unique term to public-private partnerships like CESMI. And what cost share represents, it represents the collaboration of how CESMI gets its work done. So CESMI gets its work done collaboratively with the membership and with the project teams. So cost share represents the co-investment that the project team is making in the project along with CESMI's financial investment. CESMI gets its work done collaboratively with its partnership with its members. So CESMI invests federal dollars of real money into each project. So for every dollar of real money CESMI invests in a project, we expect the project team to co-invest $1 of cost share. So what cost share represents, it is a non-financial co-investment, or it's an in-kind contribution, or for lack of a better term, like a donation. So examples of cost share that a project team could contribute to a project are personnel costs. So some of the funding that CESMI will provide a project team may cover part of the personnel costs, but may not cover a portion of it. The portion it does not cover is cost share or their co-investment or in-kind contribution to the project. Similarly, there might be other things like material supplies, hardware, software, use of equipment or facilities that the project teams are providing to the project that are not covered by the federal dollars that CESMI is providing. So the CESMI project, for every $1 that CESMI provides, we expect the project team to provide $1 of in-kind cost share, contribution, or co-investment. And the thought is that both CESMI and the project team are co-invested in the success of the project, and kind of the 1 + 1 = 3, the multiplying effect between CESMI's real dollar fundings and the project team's unique capabilities that they invest through in-kind cost share. We can do things together that couldn't be done independently. And that's part of the public-private partnership model, where you get this leverage between the financial and the non-financial contributions to the project. So there's more details here in the link, and we'll, in the next webinar next week, we'll talk more specifically about cost share examples, categories of in-kind investments, and how we dollarize or value them to do the cost share matching. So we'll get into those examples and cost share financial details next week, but just wanted to lay the groundwork for now what cost share is, because I'm sure most of you like me and hadn't heard of cost share before you got involved with CESMI. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Haresh.
Outstanding. Thank you. Thank you, Miguel. Thank you, Howard. So I think that brings us to the end of our prepared materials, and we'll open it up to some Q&A. Mike Yost, I think you were going to coordinate some questions from the chat, perhaps. If you can maybe help us do that.
Sure, I would tell everybody to please use the Q&A button, not the chat feature. We do have some questions that are in the chat. One question is, can the cost share come from non-CESMI members? Not sure who would want to take that.
So if you are awarded a project, the project lead and the project team, we expect to become CESMI members. So ideally, we expect all the project team to be CESMI members and cost share contribution coming from the team as a general rule.
Excellent, thank you. Then there's a question that says, does the lead on the proposal need to be from industry, or folks from academic institutes can lead the effort/proposal?
I think it can be led by anybody on the team, but an industry representation has to be there. An industry partner has to be there. For instance, you know, we may have a systems integrator who's actually leading the project, but there's a industry partner in there that has a strong involvement and the definition of the problem, the use of the facilities, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you, Haresh. There's another question that says, is there a forum for finding prospective team members? So for building a team to do a proposal.
I think Dale is on the call. I think Dale, maybe you can perhaps answer that question for us?
Yeah, could that be repeated one more time, please?
Sure. Is there a forum for finding prospective team members? So I think folks that
Yeah.
are looking to build the team together.
Yeah, thanks. It was clear this time. Yeah, the process we use is to connect to the SMIC leaders or those within CESMI, and then we'll coordinate and then partner up to those that could be of interest on these efforts. I think, Harish, we're going to give some contacts out there too.
Yeah, so I think we can certainly, I mean, if you have specific questions, reach out to us through the info@CESMI, and we'll put you in touch with the right folks who can help you with those types of connections. I think there are things like affinity groups and some of the internal networks that we can help with. So we will share those contact details with you.
So another question, Haresh, is for confirmation, the industry partner / systems integrator needs to join CESMI.
If you're awarded the project, you must be a member. So I think to apply for the project, you don't necessarily need to be a member, but if you're selected, you need to be a member before the award is given out to you.
Let me just add another dimension on top of that, Mike. So the official project team needs to be members. Now, the project team can subcontract as appropriate to vendors. Those vendors do not have to be members. So in that regard, vendors do not have to be members, but vendors are not officially part of the project team. They don't officially have IP rights to the project team, but project teams can have vendors along with the project team itself. So.
Excellent. Thank you both. Another question is a manufacturing partner required on all proposals? Can industry be a software developer instead of a manufacturer?
I think it'll depend a lot on how you're articulating the use case. I think without having a manufacturer on the team, if you can still clearly outline a use case for a specific manufacturer, then perhaps that becomes okay. And anyone else want to comment here from the CESMI team?
Yeah, the real objective here is to make sure we can clearly articulate what the business value to that end manufacturer or theoretical end manufacturer might be. But the project then needs to also demonstrate some results, some quantified results around that. So, as long as that can be done through the execution of the project, that would probably work out.
Okay. Another question says, and it looks, Haresh, like we have 4 or 5 questions and they keep coming in. So I'll let you decide how long we go with this, but we'll let everybody know that any question not answered here will be responded to. Maybe you want to answer that question as far as how we'll respond and make sure that all these questions do get answered.
Yeah, we only have a minute left, so I don't want to, I want to be respectful of time. But what we'll do is we'll collect the questions, we'll provide the answers on the website. On one of the slides that we showed earlier on. We can go to that link and you'll have the benefit of looking at all the questions and answers in addition to yours. So why don't we do that? It's the top of the hour here. I want to thank everybody who joined us today. Keep in mind that we have a follow-up on the 17th, and make sure that you register for that event so that you can actually we'll go through some details around the specifics of the application, the specifics of the platform and profiles, and all the relevant information you need to be able to apply. So looking forward to that. Thank you to the CESMI team who participated today, and I wish you all a safe and healthy rest of the day and rest of the week.